Council on Hearing Aids meeting is convening at 9:03 a.m. on October 10th, 2025. The meeting is being held in person and through MS Teams video conference and is being recorded. The recording will be posted to the internet for public viewing. I will now call roll. Doug Walsh, I am here. Lorraine Henriquez.
Here.
Chelsea Montgomery.
Here.
Vladimir Gutierrez.
Absent.
Yep. Peggy Kelly.
Here.
Todd Williams.
I'm here.
Jennifer Alexander.
Here.
Okay. Members, when you wish to speak, please state your last name for the record. Council members are asked not to use the chat feature during meetings. Excuse me. The Health Licensing Office, HLO, asks that individuals attending through MS Teams to keep their phones muted and cameras off during the entire meeting or until they are given an opportunity to comment during the public and interested parties feedback period. If indicated on the agenda, public comment is limited to matters listed on the meeting agenda or topics relevant to what this council has statutory authority to regulate. Public members wishing to speak, please sign in on the roster sheet available in the room or email Josh Page at josh.page@oha.oregon.gov and provide your first and last name. Everyone is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocols when conducting business.
All right. So we got first thing on our agenda is items for board action and to approve the agenda. So if everybody has looked at the agenda and somebody wants to make a motion one way or the other, now's the time.
I move to approve the agenda.
And could you say your first name, please?
Peggy?
Oh, Peggy moves. Okay. Do we have a second?
Henriquez, I second the motion.
Hey, Doug, if we could get a roll call vote to approve. Are you on mute? Doug, this is Ann. If you could call roll and to approve the agenda, please.
Maybe he's having some technical difficulties.
Yeah, he said he was on his phone because his computer was giving him trouble this morning.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes, we can hear you, Doug. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm trying to hear. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
There we go. Okay. I don't know what's going on. My phone just went crazy too. Okay. Doug Walsh, I'm here. Lorraine Henriquez.
Here.
This is
Chelsea
aye or nay,
Montgomery.
please, to adjust. This is aye or nay to adopt the agenda.
Right.
Yes.
So Doug is yes. Lorraine, could you go again, please? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Chelsea Montgomery.
Yes.
Peggy Kelly.
Yes.
Todd Williams.
Aye.
And Jennifer Alexander.
Aye.
Great, so that's adopted. So the next is the 2016 meeting dates, I believe, Trampus. Or
Correct.
2026.
That's correct. We got one set up for March 20th at 9 a.m. and one for October 9th, also at 9 a.m. And the council wants to, if anybody on the council has any issues with those, now would be the time to say something. And if everybody looks at it and thinks it's fine, somebody can make a motion to approve those dates.
Enriquez, I make a motion to approve those dates.
Jennifer Alexander, I second.
Okay, I will now call roll. Doug Welsh, yay. Lorraine Henriguez,
Yay.
Chelsea Montgomery,
Yay.
Peggy Kelly,
Yes.
Todd Williams,
Aye.
Jennifer Alexander.
Yay.
All right, that motion carries as well. So the next item up for discussion and potential vote is the 2026 chair and vice chair. So every year, this is the last meeting of the year, so we have to do this for the next year, 2026. Currently, Doug Welsh is serving as the chair, and Lorraine is serving as the vice chair for the 2025 meetings. So this is an opportunity for the council to nominate somebody for both of those positions. They can move forward with the current. Well, I should probably look at the,
Trampus, this
roster. Yeah, go
This
ahead.
is Anne. Doug is going to be finished with his second term in,
Yeah.
I believe, September of next year. And our
Mhm.
last meeting of the year will go past that. So we
Yeah.
would need a new chair. And everyone else, Lorraine is in good position with plenty of years remaining. And anyone else who would like to be involved in a leadership position is fine. It depends on if Lorraine wants to step into the chair, fine. If somebody wants somebody new, this is the time to discuss it. And as we always say, it looks onerous. We provide you with scripts and support. So you're not out on your own flailing if you decide to take one of these positions.
Enriquez, I plan to retire next year, so I'm not sure I would be eligible. So I would defer to the board to nominate someone else.
Okay, so we need completely new leadership. We need a new chair and a new vice chair for next year. Lorraine, thank you so much for telling us about that.
Yeah, recent decision.
So this is Doug Welsh. May I nominate?
Sure.
Let's go with well, Vladimir's not here, but how about Chelsea Montgomery?
For what position, Doug?
Let's try president.
Oh, chair. Okay.
Chair, yes, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of.
This is Chelsea Montgomery. I'm open to the nomination.
Okay. Now, folks, we could do the chair first and do a roll call vote, or we could get both of them together and do a roll call vote. It's really up to you guys.
Let's
In
go
the
ahead and do
interest of
vice.
time,
This is
the
Doug Welsh.
Enriquez. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Lorraine.
Enriquez, in the interest of time, I think we should do both nominations together. We seem
Okay.
practical.
Okay, so we would need a vice chair, and then we would need a motion for both. So obviously we've had Chelsea nominated, but we need a vice. to go with Chelsea so that we can make a motion, second, and a vote. Do we have somebody who would like to step in as vice? They would serve as chair if Chelsea was unable to attend a meeting.
I know I'm the user, board appointee. Oh, sorry, this is, Jennifer Alexander. I know I'm the user appointee. Am I eligible for these
You
positions? 'Cause
certainly,
I would-
yes, you are.
Oh.
Anyone
would-
on the board can serve.
Okay, thank you. I would, step forward as vice chair.
Okay, so we have a motion on the, well, it is proposed that for the 2026 period, that Chelsea Montgomery would be chair of the council and Jennifer would be vice chair. So I would need somebody, not Doug, to say so moved and a second.
So moved.
Who was that, please?
Peggy Kelly.
Todd Williams, second.
Who was second? Todd?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then Doug, if you could do a roll call to accept those nominations.
All right, I will now call roll. Doug Welsh, yay. Lorraine Enriquez,
Yay.
Chelsea Montgomery,
Yay.
Peggy Kelly,
Yes.
Todd Williams,
Yay.
Jennifer Alexander.
A.
It sounds like that motion carries.
Yep, that is unanimous. So
All
the
right,
next would be the
there we
practical
go.
exam dates.
Practical exam dates. I think everybody can see these practical exam dates in their materials. If anybody wants to discuss those, that's of course something that you can do, or somebody can make a motion to approve them.
Enriquez, I make a motion to approve those dates for the practical exams.
Jennifer Alexander, I second.
Okay, Doug, we need a roll call vote, please.
Yeah, we'll now call roll. Doug Welsh, yay. Lorraine Enriquez,
Yay.
Chelsea Montgomery,
Yay.
Peggy Kelly,
Yes.
with Todd Williams,
Yay.
and Jennifer Alexander.
Yay.
All right. So that also carries. I think that's all of the board business for now. And we're going to move into the reports section of the meeting. So we have a couple of different reports. We have the director's report, which kind of goes over board membership and the recruitment process. We kind of have gone over this current council member roster in the previous section here, but it sounds like we've got most of the board going to be in their first term and able to reappoint. So it's going to be pretty, potentially pretty stable there. But we do have Doug and Lorraine now. It sounds like maybe that's going to be going off the board in the next year. So Chrissy is our person that's responsible for our recruiting, and I'm sure she'll be. If, like I said, if as Doug starts to get ready to go off, and if Lorraine kind of makes her official stance that she's going to be retiring or leaving the board, she could just get a hold of Christy Pickett. You probably all are familiar with her. You get information from her on a fairly regular basis. So, yeah, that is that's that, and we'll move on into licensing and statistics. So we've got licenses issued here on the first slide on page 17 of the materials. These are all, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter of fiscal years, and fiscal years are kind of denoted down there in the table. They're a little different than the typical calendar year. But the main thing is this is showing kind how many licenses have been issued, permanent hearing aid specialty licenses have been issued over the last couple of years, broken down into quarters. So temporary hearing aid specialists. This is the number that we have been issuing of temporary hearing aid specialists. This is important because this is the people coming into your profession, right? Or coming from. A lot of times they'll get this license and in transition from trainee to permanent license. But so you can see have it a little bit of a bump there. I don't know if that's something that's a change or if it's just kind of the way things have come out, but we'll have to keep watching that trend.
May I
Trainee
speak? This is Doug
Yeah,
Welsh.
yeah, for sure.
Well, that spike there, I believe, which I actually know, is Costco. They're getting a huge influx of people. They're just getting all their people licensed and going through training. So that's the big bump there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Just FYI.
Yeah, it's always good to know when you see a kind of a bump. Whether is this like a trend? Is this going to keep going that way, or is it going to stay, or is this just some event that happened? We've had that with other boards where there's some like huge event that brings in a bunch of people, like telehealth or something like that, and then it'll taper back off, and
Yeah.
and then we'll be at a new normal for a while or something. So yeah, it's always good to watch those things. So trainee registration, this has been somewhat consistent. It looks like it kind of up and down a little bit, but this is of course a big pathway into your profession. So it's something that we want to be able to see and keep an eye on and see how things are going. So, and then we got renewals, licenses renewed. So this is hearing aid special permanent licenses renewed. You have to renew about every year. There are around 200, and this is representative of how people are renewing. Probably the big thing on this is how they're renewing, is that paper versus online. You can see they have a lot of people renewing online, which is of course more efficient and a little easier on everybody's side. So it's good to see people moving that direction. There are reasons people have to renew by paper. There are sometimes, there are situations where they're not able to renew online and they have to renew on paper. So that can account for some of the people who are renewing by paper, but some people just prefer it. So, and you can see licenses by age and gender on the next slide. We're on page 21. This gives us an idea of how old our profession is. If our bump is in the middle, that's good. If it's on one side or the other, it's something to think about. It does look like the wave is a little bit more to the right than the left, but yeah, it's just something we like to be able to visualize. So, licensing trends. So this is another one that gives us an idea of how our licensing trends are working. We need those trainees, right, and those temporaries to come in to push this number up on the end. Looks like we've lost a few people, but it's not a huge number. I mean, for all that graph, it's only really about 217 to 222 is where we started at the beginning of this graph. So it's definitely it's fairly stable, but it is ticking down. So it's something always to keep an eye on. But hearing aid temporary, here's your bump. So there's a few more temporary, and this maybe was commented on here by Doug earlier, but we'll see how that trend continues as we get into more meetings. And training registration also kind of trending up. And then here is the next slide on 25 is the testing results. So this gives us an overview of the testing. It breaks it down into actual subcategories within the exam, different portions of the exam, and where people are passing and where they're having more trouble. So this is a good piece of information for us to know and for the council to consider as they make decisions about how the exams are working and how people are being educated.
This is Doug. May I make a statement?
Absolutely.
Well, what I've noticed is a lot of the trainees have been, they're not given all the information, or they're lacking the training in a lot of areas, such as, the new way is, receivers in the ear.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of they call it a lazy man's fit, but there's ear molds and certain styles of ear molds, and that's what they're failing on, a lot of it. And so we're going to look at that closely. So we'll talk about that again, I'm sure.
Right.
But I think a lot
This
of it
is
has to do
Ann.
with,
May I ask a question?
yes.
When you say that's where they're failing, is it because people are learning differently, people are not learning well enough, or that our exam needs to be adjusted to meet with current standards? Do you have any sense of where the disconnect is?
Well, the last statement, yes, I'm going to take a look at that, where the test is placed, how it looks. I'll be in Tuesday, actually. But I think a lot of it, some of it's training, because they'll admit it's like, I've had no training, or they'll say, I'm doing this all on my own. And I'm surprised, because the trainer's supposed to be training. So I don't know.
Okay.
So I hear both sides, but I think the test was done a long time ago, how it was written. So we may, we'll take a closer look at that.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Looks like Adrienne Perkins, one of our HLO staff members, has something to say.
Thank you, Trampus. Can you guys hear me? It's my first time talking.
We can.
Okay, thank you. This is Adrienne, board specialist for hearing aids. I do think a big issue and your question is the trainers. I've been having a lot of issues with trainees stating their trainers haven't really been helping them through the process, that they're figuring it out themselves. I've been giving a ton of walkthroughs over the phone to the trainees. I'm wondering if there's something else we can do to better train the trainers.
It's good information.
This is Doug. May I make another statement?
Of course.
So the original program, when we first made this trainee program, we all sat around, and it's supposed to be train the trainer program, where they both get involved. So the trainer is heavily involved with the trainee. And what I see is, the trainer is not even at the same office as the trainee. And this happens quite often, and can't, that's being brought up, but no one's reporting it, and the people are afraid that maybe they'll lose their jobs if they say something. But a lot of it is they're not being trained. I heard something recently where the trainee asked their trainer a question, and they just ignored him and said, I don't know that. So there's something that needs to be a little more accountable. They have to be accountability, excuse me. Excuse me.
This is Henriquez. Could there be an improvement in oversight of the trainers somehow?
This is Doug. Yeah, that's what I really believe. There needs to be some type of accountability. And I think if they have to get in a board certification, or, maybe during the practical, we can do it through the website. I don't know. We'll see. I'd like to hear about, what the board has to say about it. What, health licensing agency.
Looks like Tina Russell, licensing manager, has something to add.
Yeah, Doug, when you come in on Tuesday, maybe we can also go over the training packet. And you can review it. That's been, that might be where the lack of communication is coming from for the trainers.
Sure, no problem.
All right. Any more
Thank you for
discussion
the
about?
sidebar.
Yeah. Is there any more discussion about this, the testing results, or if not, we can go to the next slide. So the next slide is the hearing aid financials. So this just gives you a sense of your financial health, where your beginning cash balance is, where your ending cash balance is, your operations, your expenditures, your net operations, your expenditures, revenues. Your beginning, this board has a nice cushion right now. It has a good buffer. You have your revenues coming in, and your expenditures are roughly the same as your revenues going out, or your expenditures going out. So you had a little bit of a couple of years where your balance was going down a bit, but the last fiscal year you were in good shape, and this fiscal year is pretty small, or we aren't very far into it, so the numbers have less. We're less able to kind of figure out what's going on this year, but you can kind of look at the past years and see how you're doing. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. If that number were to continue to keep going down like that, we might have to look into making some adjustments. This can change very quickly. If you don't have a lot of super contentious cases, for example, but I'm the regulatory manager, so I'm always looking at things through a regulatory lens. But one really big, ugly compliance case can take a pretty big hit on a cash balance. So or anything can come up. So it's just always good to have that buffer, and right now you have one, so it's I don't know that there's anything too alarming on here, other than, like I said, for a few years you were kind of trending down, but we'll have to keep an eye on that and see how it goes over the next bit of time here. So. Next section is the regulatory report. So this is the regulatory report. I'm actually the regulatory operations manager here at the Health Licensing Office, and this is the regulatory report. I can tell you this regulatory report has 3 sections, and it was actually printed on 9 about 30 days ago. So the picture actually has changed a little bit. Some of these numbers have actually gone down. I don't think we've gotten a lot in, but these numbers are actually down. So on this report, you can see on that far left, cases open and closed status. We have 3 biennium on there. These are 2-year periods, just to get some perspective. So, for example, the 2023 biennium, which was a 2-year period a couple of years ago, we had 21 cases come in for that 2-year period. So 5 of those are still open on this report. Actually, I think since this report was printed, a couple of those have closed out. So that picture is a little bit different than it was 30 days ago when this was printed. But yeah, so the next biennium, the 2025 biennium, which was the most recent biennium that we were in, we had 18 complaints come in during that 2-year period. So 21, 18, that's pretty, that's kind of a normal variance. So that's not any kind of I wouldn't call that any kind of a major decrease or a spike or a trend. At this point, it's just a kind of a variation. The 2027 biennium, the one that we're currently in, we've been in this biennium since July 1st of 2025, so not very long. We've had 4 complaints come in, although there has been a few differences in things, and we probably will see a little bit of a bump of the raw number over this biennium because we have been doing more CE audits, continuing education audits. And if somebody actually doesn't isn't in compliance in some way with that CE audit, then that actually comes over to regulatory and is referred to as an investigation. So it gets a case number and would show up on this report. As you can see on the complaints by type, we have 3 different main complaints by type. In past years, it's really only been 2 where we had licensing concerns, and then we had services provided. This time you'll see open for failure to meet CE audit requirements. So now there's 3 on there, and you can see in the 2027 biennium 2 were services provided, and 2 were these CE audits that resulted in a compliance case being open. Put things in perspective, they do 10% of the entire group, and 2 of them ended up out of that 10% of the entire group ended up in some form of potential compliance. In this case, 1 was closed because it turned out to not be an issue, and then the other one is still open. So that's kind of what you're seeing here. Licensing concerns overall, big picture. Licensing concerns can be anything from inactive license to somebody working unlicensed. There are a couple of unlicensed, if you can see on licensing types on the other report. So a couple of those are from that, if not all of them. And then services provided is the bulk of your complaints. Somebody's not happy with some kind of service. Either it's the hearing aid doesn't work right, it doesn't fit right, they didn't get their rescind rights they felt they should have gotten, or that are in compliance with the laws and rules. So that's kind of services. As you can see, complainants by type. The complainants by type section just gives us an idea of who's filing these complaints. The complainants by type of this board, it has an anonymous slot, which none are anonymous for this board. It shows 10 from the client. So this is the total of the 3 bienniums, just so you know. So this is the 43 that we got in over the last 3 bienniums that are still on this report. So 10 are clients, and 33 were other. Other can be anything. Can be us, those CE audits we talked about. It could be another hearing aid specialist. It could be the kid of somebody who received, like the client didn't send in the complaint themselves. The son or the daughter or something sent it in. Sometimes that can even be the husband or wife sending it in. I feel like that I actually found a few in this as I was going through things that I felt needed to be switched to client, and so I think that maybe the numbers might be a little bit, or the spirit of the numbers might be a little off. In other words, like a wife complaining for her husband, or vice versa, maybe would come up as other and not as client, where we might kind of think of that as a client. But it gives you just a sense of what's going on out there. Does anybody have any questions about regulatory or investigations or any of that they wanted to talk about, or anything on this report? All right. So we're moving right along. The next thing on our agenda is public interested parties feedback. So Doug, I think you have a script to read for the public interested parties feedback.
I do.
All right. So whenever you are ready, feel free to go ahead and read that script.
Okay, at this time, the Advisory Council on Hearing Aids will hear public and interested parties' feedback. Public comment is limited to matters listed on the meeting agenda or topics relevant to what this council has statutory rights or statutory authority to regulate. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes and will not be allowed if they are disrupted to the council's conduct of its business. Excuse me, my throat. If you are called on to comment, HLO staff will request the public member to unmute themselves. The chairman of it and HLO reserve the right to end the person's comments early, and have HLO staff mute the public member if the comment does not pertain to matters listed on the meeting agenda or topics relevant to what the council has statutory authority to regulate. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment? If so, please raise your hand or use the MS Teams raise hand feature and wait to be acknowledged. Excuse me.
Do we have anybody signed up for public comment, or anybody that, I'm not even sure that we have any public?
We do not, and there's
Okay,
nobody in.
I was gonna
in
say,
the
I don't even
call
know if
from
we
the
have any
public.
public on the call. All right. It doesn't sound like we actually have any public comment. So I suppose we can move on. So we'll move on. We have one item for council action, and that is summed up in an issue statement on slide number 31 of your materials. It is a practical exam, 5th attempt, and I think maybe somebody from licensing or will be talking about this or helping you guide through this. So.
This is Ann. Tricia, are you able to speak to this one?
It would be her or Derek.
I was not planning on saying anything because usually I don't. I thought this was going to be brought up by Doug.
Oh, really? This is the P4, right? This is Doug.
Yes. Yeah. So this is the review of the request to take a hearing aid practical exam, section P4 for its 5th attempt. So the background on this is that to qualify for a hearing aid specialist license, you have to pass the practical examination. And the office, so the office is, go ahead, Tricia.
Sorry, I misunderstood. I was thinking we were talking about the actual practical itself. Yeah,
no.
this candidate, she failed that portion of the exam 4 times. Per rule, after the 4th attempt, we have to get, some instruction from the board. In the past, we've just offered them a study review, kind of going over all of their previous attempts at that portion of the exam, and then they could retake it.
This is Chelsea Montgomery. I feel like that plan is a reasonable course of action for this specific person.
So this is Ann. So Chelsea, are you making a motion to allow this individual to test this section again?
I was more going to kind of gauge other people's thoughts before moving to make a motion.
Okay.
This is Henriquez. I'd be interested to know if this is a common issue that comes up where people need to take the practical more than 4 times and not go back to the beginning. So I'm just curious, is this something that's common? Because I think that's a lot of that's a lot of tests, and I just don't know why this person isn't, progressing, because I look at the scores and I'm like, okay, are they studying?
This is Doug Walsh. To that answer, I believe it's a combination of both. Part of it is the training given and the practical use of it on the job, I believe, is not happening all the time. And also, it could be that, we're going to take a closer look at it. But from what I've seen when I do this, it's a lot of them, it's knowledge that used to be what we would call old school in a way, but a lot of them are using, RICs and whatever. They're not really given a good training program on what ear molds or receivers or even, real ear measurements, all that. So I think the training lacks at one end.
This is Henriquez. Those materials, though, that information is covered, as far as I know, in the IHS prep material, except, as far as I can remember, there's not a lot of information about receivers. So in the training material, but I could be wrong.
This is Chelsea Montgomery. A question on that. Is there an outside program offered by a national HIS organization that we could recommend these candidates to take as a study prep for these courses if they don't pass, maybe even just the first or second time, not necessarily the fourth?
This is Doug Walsh. I've been doing a lot of phone calls, and one company actually has a program where they run through everything, and it's amazing how they do it. But usually you get some good results out of it. A lot of times I'll be doing the practical, and I look at the book all the time. It's right there in the book, but when they go to test, they just overlook it. One of them's masking. It's like, it's all right there. It's bam, page so and so, and they still don't get the concept. And that's where I believe where the trainer comes in. Is here it is. If you have questions, have the trainer do some practicals on them. Just
I didn't sign
him. Walk through a test with masking or receivers. Choices, real ear measurements. I think it's at one end to a point, but again, we'll talk about that again.
This is Henriquez. Well, my concern is I don't see the scores improving with each attempt. In other words, I don't believe that the trainee is putting an effort in to learn the material. So that concerns me.
Trisha, did you have something to say? I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, this is Trisha. So this individual they didn't fail the entire practical. It was just the one portion. The P4 section is verification, and it is 10 multiple choice questions. And so I think this is maybe the third time in the past year that somebody has failed it the 4 times. And part of it, the questions are weighted so heavily, they can only miss 3 questions. So as soon as they, miss 4, that's it. They have to retake it again. But it's only that one section that they're not getting.
Anne? Your hand is raised too.
Yes, thank you. I think for the record, we just need to clarify that Doug is speaking to this because he is one of the office's proctors and he administers the practical exam. I don't think we've ever made that clear, so we keep going back to him. I wanted, for posterity, people to know why we were doing that.
Thank you.
This is Chelsea Montgomery. Is this the same individual that we had given permission previously to retake the exam?
No, this is a different individual. The other one did pass.
And Trisha, what was the What did the board do in that on that previous one?
We did a study review beforehand, so they received a copy of each past attempt at it. They were able to review that for either 30 minutes or an hour, and then they retook it again.
And that's what the board voted to have them do the
Yes,
last
that's
time, do a
correct.
study review and then retake the exam? Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to be clear on what the board did the last time.
I do recall from the last time, there is a question in there, I believe, that requires a conversion that some people may not be picking up on. And so there could be some rewording of some of the questions in the future that might help.
Thank you. Todd?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to have, satisfy curiosity of what happens should they not pass the exam again.
I believe we come back and ask you guys again.
Okay, thank you.
This is Doug Walsh.
Go ahead.
I'm going to motion that we do have her take it over again.
Todd Williams here. I second that motion.
All right.
Can we get a roll call vote, please?
And can we make it clear if not only to take it again, but also to have the review prior to?
Absolutely. So just to be clear, the motion, and I don't know if we need to remove and second, but it's not just to take the exam again, but also to get a study review prior to taking the exam again. Kristen, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was, yeah, I think I have 2 points. I don't know if this is going to affect the motion and the vote. There was a question about what happens if the applicant takes the examination a 5th time and doesn't pass. There's a rule 331-650-0055 subsection 3. I'm just going to read it. If the applicant does not pass the examination on the 5th attempt, the applicant may be required to take additional training. So that's what your rule says. That's an answer to that question. I don't know if that's going to affect your motion. Second point to the motion, if you're going to revise the motion and what you're voting on, I would do as Ann suggested. I would make a new motion with the verbiage Ann's going to give you and then second that one. Because you may have 2 competing motions if individuals here want the vote or want the result to be different. You just want to clarify what you're actually voting for.
This is Ann, and so it's my understanding that after the discussion, the idea was to allow this individual to test again after a study review. If that is what the council would like, we would need a last name so moved, last name second, and a roll call vote, please.
This is Henriquez. Would you please tell me what the study review? I'm not familiar with the study review. Could you just briefly tell us what that is?
Yeah, they will get a copy of the last 4 attempts. So they will see the questions and their answers. So they'll know what the correct answers are, and they'll review all of their past attempts. And they usually have about a half an hour or an hour to review all of it.
Okay, thank you.
This is Chelsea Montgomery. Are the questions then on the following exam the same questions as the ones they're reviewing?
There's 4 different forms or versions of the exam. Some of the questions may repeat themselves on an exam, but they're not the same exact questions each time. But they are going to, because they failed it 4 times, they're going to see every version there is available. So they're going to get all of the questions covered in their review.
Peggy, do you have a question?
A comment. So I would think that would address the concern that she may not be studying, because if she has access to all of the questions and still is unable to pass, then I think that is a very different decision point.
Yeah, I think we're kind of getting into pretty gray territory. This is Chelsea Montgomery, where we're just pretty asking her to almost memorize the answers as opposed to apply knowledge. So I feel like it would be worthwhile for the board in the future to discuss study reviews that are related to the content and not the specific questions asked.
This is Henricus. I agree with that. That seems really important.
This is Doug Walsh. That, they are supposed to refer back to the IHS book. It's right there. And if they just study it, it's there, which is, it's interesting that a lot of them miss it. So, and I think part of that is, a portion of it is lack of use. You just don't put it in practice.
This is Tina. And yes, I believe we would have the book in there when they're reviewing it. It's actually not enough time to memorize anything, especially if you're doing a half-hour study review or even 45-minute study review. We do study reviews on a lot of our other boards too, and it really isn't enough time to memorize, but they can refer to the book when they're looking at their graphs that they did, just to give a little bit more explanation on how those study reviews work.
Excuse me. Well, this is Doug Welsh. I still motion to let her retake it with the suggestions given. And somehow we can make up some type of a different type of study program where they can actually, it's more specific without letting them show the answers, I'm sure, but we'll have to look at that.
This is Chelsea Montgomery. I second the motion to, have her retake with the study review.
Okay, this is Ann, we would need a roll call vote, Doug, to adopt the motion that the individual will be given a study review and then an additional test.
I will now take roll. This is Doug Welsh. Yay. Lorraine Enriquez.
Yay.
Chelsea Montgomery.
Yay.
Peggy Williams.
Peggy Kelly, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Peggy Kelly. I'm looking at. Sorry about that. Todd Williams.
Yay.
Jennifer Alexander.
Aye, yes.
All right.
Trampus, you're on mute.
Thank you. Moving right along, we've got the next thing that is up for discussion is some points of discussion around the hearing aid specialist trainee registration application. And I believe maybe Tina
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Actually, that's out of order. That's out of order. The first discussion that we have on the agenda is, it was brought forth to me, the suggestion, and this is just, again, discussion. We're not going to make any decisions today, but it came from staff, the idea of allowing trainers to administer the practical exam and taking it away from HLO staging these practical exams and allowing trainers to give training, temporary license holders or trainees practical exams as we do with some of our other boards. And we thought we would throw that out to see. Adrian, you have a statement?
Oh yeah, I just had a thought to add to what you were saying when you were done.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is just a discussion for the council to allow trainers to administer the practical exam instead of everybody coming to the office. Adrian, what have you got?
So I think that would be a great idea. We would just have to give them guidelines as to how to perform the practicals, considering at this time we're having issues with the training itself, let alone the practicals. From the trainers, does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. So the floor is open.
Yeah, this is Chelsea Montgomery. I would feel more comfortable with maintaining the status quo, but I'd be curious to hear how many, like what the proportion is of other boards that do this. I feel like the trainees or the trainers in some ways have financial incentives for the trainees to get their license. So I'm not sure if there's enough motivation for honesty.
Well, this is Doug Walsh. I believe, and Trampus may be able to answer this better, Ann, but I think every board that we have absorbs their practical into their training program. And if that's correct, can someone add to that?
This Tina.
Yeah, go ahead, Tina.
Yes, several of our boards or programs do have their practicals with the trainers. In this case, some things have been brought up when we were discussing the supervision of trainees earlier. It would definitely have to be a program to where it was more defined, having the trainers be able to, or the supervisors be able to have the responsibility of completing the practical exams within their office. And one of the things, Doug, that you had brought up earlier that you had heard from individuals were that their supervisors were not in the office when their training was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So in their training, it's a direct supervision, no more than 4 trainees at a time. So maybe some outreach needs to be done to some of these trainers that they can't be at a different location when training is happening. Indirect supervision is when they get their temporary license. They can have indirect supervision, but during their training program, they have to have direct supervision.
Exactly.
So we might need to, make that more clear in some of our forms, maybe that the supervisor sign. But to answer the question, yes, we do have a lot of our boards and programs that do the training or the practical with the trainers.
This is Doug Walsh again. There's alternatives too, besides having them do the training. There's IHS has a package, they can send for a practical and they can pay for that. But along that line, we would have to do more of a kind of what we're doing right now on the web. So they can set up a camera or two and just have them, have a test subject there and just run through everything and ask them questions as we go. And that would be like not in office, but there'd be a certain amount of proctors that could do this from home almost, or office. And there's a lot of companies that, do that. They'll have a proctor just watching and see what's going on, make sure no one's cheating.
This is Tina. One other thing to add. There is some things on this practical that can be added to the written examination. Not all of these have to be on the practical. So if we did take the practical and took some of the information and put it in the exam, that's another suggestion that we have.
This is Doug Welsh again. I agree with you completely. There's a lot of this practical that we can just write it in, a heck of a lot. It's, I don't know. I'm for it. And I think, as long as they show competency and they're being honest, and they have to, maybe sign something. Again, we'll have to talk about that.
This is Chelsea Montgomery. I'm wondering if we did offer like that online proctoring that was suggested, would that be more or less onerous on the board as opposed to the current setup?
This is Anne. I'm not really sure if we can answer that because I'm not exactly sure if we know what this online, being able to compare an online proctor with what we do now. I'm not exactly sure what it would take to do an online proctor, like what the steps are. So I'm not sure that any of us are able to compare that.
Yeah, this is Chelsea Montgomery again. I was just thinking, I'm not sure how the practical actually works, but I figured it would be multiple candidates at the same time versus online, which would be one at a time.
Exactly. This is Doug Welsh. When I was working for a company recently, they had an excellent program where we had a webcam set up and even another one. And they went through the whole scenario of what we do. And it was perfect. They did fine. And I've been trying to get a hold of the person the last couple of days, and I haven't got a phone call back yet. So, but it is a very complete, detailed program where they had my trainee go through the whole routine, and she did excellent. And I mean, there was no ifs, ands, or buts. There was no mistakes. No, everything was observed, and it did a great job. And that was just by a webcam.
Doug, this is Tina. Is it a company in Oregon? I mean, what were you having them do?
What they did is it was a company in Oregon. It was Hearing Life, and I think let me see here real quick. I think Lorraine knows quite a bit about it. I don't know if she's gone through a training program, or trained anybody there. But they, what we did is we sat them down. We had a computer that had a camera on it, and they can actually share the screen of what the audiogram was doing if they needed to. And we had an extra webcam that we could move it around. So if we're doing an impression of the ear, they're just showing, the camera's right there. If we're doing an impression, it was very easy. And the proctor, their people who were training would just, did an excellent job too. So it was pretty much flawless.
This is Chelsea Montgomery again. I have definitely had like similar proctoring experiences, so I wonder if we want to offer something that's easier for these individuals taking the exam where they could pay for this service to be remotely proctored for the convenience of not having to travel in.
This is Doug Welsh. I think we really want to, I think the main goal is really just to get it where the trainers do the proctor itself written. I mean, I know, when I was doing proctoring a long time ago, audiologists, we were taking the same state test, proctoring here up at Portland University. And so they absorb their training into their program. However, that, I didn't see how that happened, but though they were no longer able, they didn't have to do the practical with the state. So it's kind of the direction I think we can go, as long as there's some type of buffer where we understand what they're doing, even if we have to once in a while observe. If it's local, someone could show up, watch them do a practical in their office, or have management do a practical if it's a larger company. But as long as we can watch them, do an ear mold, I don't see, and they're doing ear molds already. So I don't know. I think a lot of it could be absorbed, to be honest with you. Do I hear the?
Go ahead, Doug. This is Ann. I was thinking, and I was okay. So, is this just? I'm trying to get an action item out of this, if any. What would be our next steps as members of the council see it?
Well, I would like to have another discussion about it, but I would like to see it go ahead and moved on to where we can set up some type of training program, maybe multiple, to where we can actually choose something that's, adequate.
When you say something, can you be more specific?
Well, yes, I'm sorry. Well, I'm thinking about multiple items, like give it all to the trainer, let them do it. Let's make a program for them that would be maybe a little more difficult, or if we don't feel comfortable about giving it to the trainer, maybe do it online, or maybe a proctor can observe it in their office, like online, just watch them. So there's other alternatives I'm sure we can do. Like I said, I've been doing the proctoring quite a while, and I understand a lot of it it's repetitive, and it's things that have already been doing, which are, not too bad. It's just, I think we can put a lot of it just in a written form, such as ear molds, or, power. We can get pictures, whatever we can do. We would have to set up a program for that.
Okay, so you're suggesting, so that I'm clear, that HLO make a program for the trainer so that they can administer the proctoring for the practical, or maybe have proctoring online. Both of those things are going to take research and work. So doing them at the same time, do you have any more specific direction as far as looking into things? Because I really want to make sure that we're going in the right direction before we commit staff resources, because our staff is up to their eyeballs. Can I get more of a sense from the board or from the council? Do you want our staff to kind of research the options online and maybe at the next meeting we can kind of see what we found? Or does everyone feel comfortable or confident about HLO beginning to come up with some sort of training for trainers to do the proctoring? Doug?
Excuse me. Well, I honestly feel that we should move on to writing a program, or into their training program. If you don't feel comfortable, like I said, like you said, if you don't feel comfortable with it, the council doesn't, we can try a different alternative. But again, I think it would be more beneficial to have it given to the trainer, as long as there's some type of accountability.
Well, there probably would be a lot of steps. This is Anne, to take something that's traditionally, because we can't do anything quickly because we want it to be well thought out. So the first step to something like this, I think, would be to have perhaps our qualifications experts review, maybe work with you on if everyone, and this is if everyone's okay, raise your hand and go, nope, nope, if you don't want to do this. I know Chelsea said that she was, if I heard it correctly, was okay with the status quo. Maybe look into what it would take to create some sort of practical exam proctor training and maybe start exploring that while also seeing if there's any kind of online options. Am I capturing something that everyone would support? Because this would be our qualifications. This would be Mr. Foltz, who's on the line now, Derek and Trisha and that group kind of looking into this. Is everyone okay with starting that sort of exploration? It wouldn't happen quickly because good work rarely does, but are we okay with that?
This is Chelsea Montgomery again. I'd probably lean, like Doug had said, towards making the program for the trainers to be able to administer and proctor the exam. But I'm curious, that you mentioned, of course, it's going to be work to develop this new program. Is the goal that once the program is created, it will be less work since we won't have to administer the proctor? I'm just kind of seeking out what the motivation is for the change.
Sure. I think that was the impression I got from staff and leadership, was the idea, well, there's many benefits. I mean, the downside is, of course, integrity, quality control, and I get that. The benefits, as I see them, would be flexibility for the trainees to get their exam when they want it. It would free up the health licensing office from having to hold these formal proctoring, which take both boardrooms and a lot of time. And it would be flexible on both sides and save HLO some work and I imagine some expense. Tina?
Yeah, that exactly, Anne. And then also, I think once those trainers know that that is what, I mean, these individuals have to pass the outline of the practical, it might be good for them to know that now they have to step up and they actually have to train better.
That's an extremely good point, Tina. Thank you very much. That's true. If the person you're giving the exam to can't pass and you trained them, well, there you go.
This is Doug Walsh. That is something we've been looking at, where if, the accountability portion, if they, train the trainer, if they can't pass, there's something wrong. And I mean, what if they even had to record it via, a webcam? Just they can record
what, Doug?
Record their practical.
Oh.
In their office. So it would show that, okay, so if there's a problem, we're going to go ahead and take a look at that recording, and we're going to, just do a small checkup and see how you're doing. But make it a requirement,
Okay, that's certainly something we can consider. So I think we at least have some great guidance on goals and initial steps. Does anyone in our qualification staff or any council member want to add anything? Are there additional questions? Mr. Foltz or Ms. Mola, do you have any questions for the council?
I don't at this time. I think once we meet on Tuesday, we'll have a better idea of how to move forward. This is Derek, by the way.
Thank you so much, Derek.
This is Tricia. Yeah, I think we'll be able to review the current practical and see how we can do that better on Tuesday.
Great. So perhaps I'll make an item for the spring agenda. Perhaps staff could come prepared to kind of show their work, what they found. And if there are additional questions or guidance needed, would the council be open to meeting for a short special meeting to give them any additional guidance if they hit a snag?
This is Doug Welsh. I agree with that. Yes.
We'll call this the Proctor Project. Okay. Well, thank you all so very much. Go ahead, Doug.
You know, another benefit is when I see these people, some of those people are exhausted. They come rolling in from this corner of the state or up north in Washington. They're exhausted, even though they stay in a hotel. You know, they're pretty wiped out, and I think it would be, you know, kind of a burden, and it would help them out maybe to, I don't know. It just seems like it'd be more beneficial.
No, this is Ann. One of the things that some of our, and we have, 20 boards and programs now. One of the things that we try to balance, we have a huge state with varying degrees of internet connectivity and all that. And when you push things out into the community, you do increase convenience. But the push-pull on that is ensuring integrity of exams. If you allow someone to take something online through a platform whenever they feel like it, open book with a sandwich, whatever support they need, yes, it is sure convenient. It saves money. It helps them. The push on the other side is, what is the quality of that exam? And that's where HLO tries to balance the convenient part with making sure that the public is protected by people who are taking an exam and it actually tests applicability of knowledge and judgment and all the things that you want to get out of an exam, right?
Exactly.
So this has been extremely fruitful. Lorraine, did you have anything to add? I saw your bubble light up.
I just feel like we're making a lot of accommodations for people who perhaps are not putting the effort in. It's, the way the status quo is set up, there's a lot of accountability because we have proctors, and the proctors are well trained. Yes, it's inconvenient, but there's no room for problems with integrity there. So I'm in favor of the status quo as it stands, because it seems like there would be a lot of effort and time put into making this more convenient. And I'm not sure that that's something we should be thinking about. Yeah, convenience is nice, but for all the past people who came to take their practical, it's not really fair. And also, I do worry about integrity, because even with a camcorder, some kind of video going, there's room for over guidance or oversharing of information where it's not appropriate. I just feel like the status quo, it looks to me like the status quo eliminates that problem. So I'm in favor of keeping things as they are, where proctors are in, and candidates are present with proctors. So there's no room for, lapses in integrity.
This is really helpful, Lorraine. Do you think, Doug, as the chair, that maybe a straw poll before we commit resources, or maybe we could just do a little test balloon and see if there's anything out there that has the integrity, because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what's out there because we haven't looked, because we had a system. Do you feel comfortable, Doug? I'm trying to get a sense of how everybody feels. Maybe a straw poll to see if the majority of the council wants us to at least investigate opportunities, or if the majority of the council says maybe not at this moment. I'm just trying to get a sense of what the majority of the council would like to do.
Well, in my opinion, I would like to have it switched over, but if we want to do a straw poll, that's fine. But I know through other, licensees, they do train in office and do their proctoring there, and they do great. And, even if if they're working for a large company, the company can offer that certain training program, which quite a few of them do. I know Costco has an excellent training program, so does Hearing Life. I know Miracle here does, as long as it's all online, but they should be able to pass. But doing the proctoring portion, it's
Todd, I see your hand up.
excuse me.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wanted to make a note that there are a number of third-party resources that offer proctoring for exams that utilize webcams and recorded videos, and they make the environment very closed off, so there's no lack of integrity. Nobody can help the person taking the exam and that sort of thing.
Henriquez, who would absorb the cost of that independent proctoring?
I would imagine the person taking the exam, but if the board would like, I'd be happy to do a little research and maybe put together a couple of names of some third-party applications that could help us.
This is Chelsea Montgomery. I'm not sure if that would be as applicable because we're talking about the practical exam. So there's by necessity, different people, different environments in the room. It's not the questions like the written exam that we're talking about.
This is Doug Welsh. Yeah, I've already investigated that, Todd. A lot of them are just, the questions and, making sure they're not cheating and etc. Like Chelsea mentioned, it's, we have someone there, but even in, a trainee trainer, and they bring in an individual to be tested, like I said, they could videotape that or have a proctor watch it online at that time and just observe any discrepancies. So they're not going to sit there and give them answers or cheat, in other words. So I think that may be the way to go. So I would say let's look into it. Because like I said, there's a lot of organizations out there that absorb their training, proctoring into their training. They do great.
This is Chelsea Montgomery again. I have a question. I'm just thinking about what Lorraine brought up, that I feel like we could get into a perfect storm where we have poor performance. We've seen the number of failures on the written exam and then decreased oversight. So I'm curious, what is the pass rate of the practical exam? Because if it's typically very high, then I think there's less concerns than if there's more of a risk of failure, there's more of a risk of the cheating.
I think this is Doug. That'd be along the line of Trish's call, but I believe that a lot of them pass. There's the way it's scored, as in P4. If they miss 3, it's like we can give them more questions, open it up a little bit. But if you miss 3, then you're doomed. But and you don't pass. But I believe P4 is a problem, and I think Trish knows the rest of if there's another issue.
This is Ann. Well, to inform the conversation, the tests are broken down by sections and pass-fail rate and years on slide 25.
Exactly.
This is Chelsea Montgomery. I'm looking at that pass fail rate and I'm wondering the practicals like 1B, 1C, 2, 3, 4, these all different parts of the practical that each individual has to pass. They're not like 3 indicates a retake.
This is Henricus. In the past, if I'm not mistaken, if you fail any part of the practical, you need to take the practical over. Not that you
Lorraine,
can
this
take
is
the
Ann.
section.
You only have to
Yeah.
take the part you failed. You don't have to
Okay.
take the whole thing again. And this is the number of times people took it, not individual testers.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Trish, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just going to explain a little bit more about the practical. There are 6 portions to the practical exam, and 3 of those portions are portions that we can do in office without the proctor. So they will come in for the first time to do all 6 portions. If they don't pass any one of those 6, they do have to retake it. Now, most of the time it is the P3 or the P4 that we can administer again. And that's where we kind of have come into where sometimes they may fail 4 times. The other common one is the P1C. That one, those are the 3 that usually have to be retaken, but it is not the entire thing.
Trisha, this is Trampus. Or maybe could somebody give us an indication as to what the content of 1C, P3, and P4 are? Sounds like P4 is actually a written exam, is a written
That one
test.
is the P4 is it's called verification. I am not very familiar with hearing aid stuff, but that one is called verification, and it is the 10 multiple choice questions.
So that's
The
actually
P
a written exam.
Yes, physically a written. It's pen and paper.
Okay.
The P3, they have containers that have multiple receivers in them, as well as audiograms, and they have to match the receivers in the container to the correct audiogram.
Okay.
And then the
Okay.
P1A, I know that one has to do with they're given some specs and they have to graph them on the audiograph, on a blank one. And those are the only portions that I do. Oops, Doug can speak to the others.
Doug, can you give us an indication of what P1C is?
Now, I believe that's the masking portion.
Yeah.
Isn't that right, Trish? If you remember right, I don't have it here in front of me.
That sounds about right. The P2 I know is molding, and nobody ever fails that one. That one's always a good one.
Yeah. So it has to do with mainly masking through word to scrim, and it's really what I stated before. The masking portion is there in the book, and what it is, it's a lack of knowledge or training. And I mean, the test is fine when when you ask about what are your masking levels, what frequency you're going to start off at, you can open up the book to that portion, and it has a huge diagram right there. Just there it is. So a lot of it has to do with not studying or they do not mask enough. And they run into people, or they don't know how to mask. So that's an issue.
Interestingly enough, from a regulatory standpoint, and this is anecdotal information at this point, but I know that when I was working investigations and working hearing aid investigations and looking at testing and talking with SMEs, there was a lot of issues with masking on those records as well of the complaints that I got. So that's interesting that that's a section of the test that can sometimes be problematic for trainees.
And Trampus, this is Ann. For the record, SME is a subject matter expert.
I'm sorry, yeah, subject matter expert. Yeah.
And again, going back, this is Doug Welsh. Going back, I believe it's training. It's like, if they're just given a book and they do it themselves, they're not really going to understand some of it, I believe. But I mean, some people catch on really well, and some people just like bam, they get it right away, and it's great. But then there's those people right off the bat, they struggle. And I don't know if it's test anxiety or just, lack of training, lack of doing it over and over. And if we have to increase our training time in certain portions, I'd say so, even in our requirements, I would say, let's focus in on some of these trouble issues and add it to the training program, more hours.
Okay, this is Ann. So we've strayed a little bit from looking into proctoring at more of a local level to we've kind of moved into a conversation about the training packet. How are we feeling about this, Lorraine?
As I said, I'm in favor of keeping the practical exam as is, as far as location. And yeah, we can look at other options, but it seems like a lot of effort right now for for OHL, for a lot, and it's convenient. I understand that, but I just like the idea of a proctor present with the person taking the test. I think that works really well. I do believe that could be more hours spent on the trouble, the areas where trainees are failing more commonly, which is, as you said, maybe masking. A difficult concept for some people. So the trainer should be not only going over the written the book with them, but have them do masking several times for several audiograms, so they know that candidate has really understood and applied the concepts.
Yeah, this is Chelsea Montgomery. Going off of that, I think that it's important to consider what is the possibility of increased hours spent investigating complaints if training and licensing is less strict.
This is Doug Welsh. On the other side of that, I believe I was talking to Robert about, I believe cosmetology or beautician, they have a license, they have a license for their facility that gives the health licensing agency the right to go in and do an audit. And I believe that we do not have that option right now.
No, and that is not in your statutes.
Exactly. Can it be?
That would take, first of all, we're getting off the conversation a little bit.
Okay.
That would take somebody, either an association or an individual, not as a board member, to put forth a legislative concept and get that through the legislation and get it as an authority under your statutes. We have said from the beginning, your statutes are from the 1950s, and could probably use some modernizing. But as the executive branch of the government, we do what the legislation tells us to do. It's not something that HLO or this board, it would be inappropriate.
All right.
Well, were you thinking, Doug, that this is Trampus, that would tie into the practical exams if the facilities were licensed?
That's what I was pointing toward. It would be another accountability.
Yeah. Well, with like, for example, cosmetology, it's actually not the facilities that it conduct the practical exams. It's actually schools, and they're actually licensed by the Higher Education Committee. So they
Coordinating Commission, yeah.
Yeah, Coordinating Commission. I'm sorry. And they're actually licensed and regulated by that. So the practical exams in cosmetology, for example, are administered by the schools themselves, and those schools are licensed separately outside of this office. So it's a little different scenario, but I see what you're saying.
Another question, this is Chelsea Montgomery. Do we have a sense of how many other states allow the practical exams to be administered by trainers?
This is Ann. We do not have that information because we have never been directed to acquire that information. Now, the difficulty with state comparisons, and I get this with all my other boards, they always want to know what other people are doing. We can look, but remember that every state, when it comes to licensing, is its own nation. Every state has its own statutes that define scope of practice, requirements, what they have to do. And so, yeah, another state might allow it. They might have a different structure that allows it, or different authorities that allow them to do things that we can or can't do. There are other states that allow, that define hearing aid fitters a scope of practice differently, how it overlaps with audiology or doesn't, so they're all very different. It's certainly something we can look into, but it's not always apples to apples, if that makes sense, Chelsea.
Yeah, it definitely does. I feel like I would be comfortable with moving forward with some research. One, is this something that other states are doing? And two, getting an idea of what maybe the trainer program could look like, and we could visit it next time. Like Lorraine mentioned, because there's quality control issues, it's not something I'd necessarily feel comfortable being an early adopter for, but if it's worked other places, I feel like that'd make me more comfortable than if we were one of the first states that are going this direction.
Sure. So would we be comfortable not making a decision on a direction, but perhaps doing a landscape scan to see what all is out there in the way of remote proctoring and who's doing what, just on a sample? Are we comfortable with that?
This is Doug Welsh. I'm comfortable with that. We need some feelers out there to see what's going on. I have been making calls to other states, and a lot of them, you're Oregon, they don't want to give up information sometimes. So even getting a hold of International Hearing Society talking about this is, they get money for giving out proctor packages. So they didn't want to, so they didn't want to really go that route on their end. They said it's a great concept. That's what the head of training said, is it's an excellent concept, but they just don't do it.
Could you be more specific about what you talked about? What they do or don't do?
Well, they send out proctor packages that, we'd purchase, or the trainee would purchase, and we have it right in front of us. Or they send it to a facility, that's what she mentioned, where they would proctor off that package.
What's in that package?
It's just like what we have. It's the
Okay.
same sort of practical, almost the same thing. Questions along with, hearing tests, masking, receiver matches, items like that. So it almost mirrors what we have already.
I know I keep going back to it, but I'm still looking for some kind of direction, consensus and direction, or and if we're not feeling strongly about any one thing, this is certainly something that we can all kind of go back to our lives and think about. And maybe at the next board or council meeting in the spring, we can see if there's a couple of things that we can have our staff look into, and then just have another discussion, because this was something that it's really hard to speak extemporaneously like this. Maybe you want to give it some more thought, and we can bring it back to the spring meeting and see if feelings have changed. We can do a scan, a quick, not super deep scan on kind of what's available out there as far as remote proctoring. And just sort of bring back what we found. You guys can go back to your individual fields of practice and see, what you find, and you can forward it to Derek or myself. And maybe we could bring some initial research back to the spring meeting. Do we feel better about that?
This is Doug Welsh. I do feel that would be a great idea. I will call this one company I was talking about and get a hold of them and see how they do it, because they're already set up for it. They can do it, and their management does it through the through a webcam with a manager on site. So
Okay.
they do a great job.
Okay. Well, I know Lorraine was not comfortable with changing things, and I'm not suggesting that we do, because we do everything very carefully. If Lorraine, are you comfortable with staff and maybe some council members that have connections to just kind of do a cursory scan on what's available out there? Are you okay with that, Lorraine?
Yes.
Okay. Chelsea, are you comfortable with that?
Yes, I am.
Todd? Todd, you're on mute. Peggy, how do you feel about that?
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. Who else did I miss? Jennifer? How do you feel about a cursory landscape check about what's out there for proctoring?
Yeah, I'm definitely comfortable with the. I'm comfortable with it. I can't speak this morning. Still drinking my coffee. Thank you.
I totally understand. Todd, are you back with us? Mr. Williams, you're still on mute. Okay. Maybe he's having some technical issues. Qualifications professionals, Derek and Tricia, or do you have any questions about what the council is asking of HLO?
No, I think I have an understanding.
I just want to make sure everybody knows what they need to do. Have we lost Derek? We might have. Okay, that's fine. We can communicate with him and just sort of check in. Again, we're not going to do a super deep dive because I don't feel all of us forward over our toes, wanting to go into this. And so we'll just see kind of what's out there. And if there's a way to do this that balances that convenience with integrity, which is where we all want to go. So are we okay with moving our discussion on to our next item? Because I do know one of our members is has a time constraint this morning. Are we comfortable moving on?
This is Doug. I am.
This is Chelsea Montgomery. I am too.
This is Jennifer
Hey, Rika,
Allison. I
that's
am.
fine.
Wonderful. You guys are just great. So the next thing that came up, and Tina might be able to speak to this, in our trainee files, there are some supervisory, more and more things, and we all know this. This is not news, that everything is becoming computerized, right? Everything is online now. Everything is keyed in. And there are some things in our trainee packet that require a supervisor's handwritten signatures. It's actually written on the form. And we've had some questions about, is it possible to have more of these forms computerized and more electronic signatures and box checking and things like that? Tina, can you speak to this issue?
Yeah, we've had several trainees, supervisors that question the fact that when they're doing the testing, fitting, the hearing, any of the things that they have to do for what the supervisor has to do. What
Hold
they're
on
wanting
1 second. We just lost Chelsea. She's coming back in. I'm sorry, Tina.
Yep, I'm back. Thank you.
Okay, please continue, Tina.
So what it says is, as a designated supervisor, approval of the temporary hearing aid specialist work must be documented by handwritten signature. But a lot of this is all online, like the audiograms, all the testing and stuff that they're doing. They want to know if the signatures can be in the computer and not handwritten. So that's the question. Can it be electronic or does it have to be handwritten?
This is Doug Welsh. I completely disagree with computerized handwritten, writing. I would say more handwritten. You can print it out, scan it, send it off. But handwritten would be a little more appropriate.
This is Chelsea Montgomery. I would offer the alternate point of view, which is unnecessary to print paper to sign it to then upload it electronically again. So I feel like electronic signatures are appropriate.
Well, this is Doug Welsh again. I'm going to have to disagree. I believe that almost anybody could do a computerized, just hit it, type it in. Handwritten would, at least it would be more, I think it would be more appropriate.
This is
I know we all.
Henrique. I agree with Doug.
We're looking at integrity. That's what I'm trying to get across is, yeah, we're looking at, it is very convenient to do handwritten. I do it all the time for insurance companies, but it realistically, when it comes to training, I believe it should be handwritten.
Peggy?
Thanks. I would offer the opposite. I think that anybody can scribble a handwritten signature and upload it, and there's no guarantee that it was the person that did it. I think that in this day and age, that electronic signature carries at least that person's computer login ID with it. And so would be the reason that I would say it is now the acceptable way to do mortgages and all the other kind of super secure verified things that we do.
Let me ask you a question. This is Doug. Is the email that's sent along with your training, is it encrypted? Some type of security?
Doug, are you asking me or are you asking other hearing aid specialists?
Anybody. Yeah, anybody. I mean, is the email secure enough? Encrypted? Because, realistically, anybody can do. This goes back to old, law enforcement days, but anybody could do a signature and do it really well. Not everybody, but, copying that. But then, a computerized signature, literally, without some type of security, is literally anybody can do it. A trainee could do it. So that's my point, mainly. That's why I prefer, it's not personal, but I prefer a signature you can go back on and look at and, match to another signature. So I don't know. Whatever's convenient.
On your order forms, your audiograms, chart notes, and statement to a prospective hearing aid purchaser, are they printed and signed and go in a file? I just want to get kind of a gist of what you're doing. Are the order forms, are those all done electronic and sent in to order hearing aids?
Well, the order form itself, usually you can go into their portal, say Starkey's portal, and order the hearing aids there. You have your own account. You really don't sign anything, but it's in the account.
But on this, it says handwritten signature, license number, and date of review and place adjacent to the temporary hearing aid specialist signature on any audiogram, order form, chart notes, and statement to prospective hearing aid purchaser or any other hearing aid service.
All handwritten. That's what I do.
This is Chelsea Montgomery. So just a question on that for the HIS in the meeting. Do you then print the order forms from the portals and sign them to be maintained in a database or chart?
This is Doug. Usually I'll print the invoice when I do it and then sign it and have the trainee sign it for the temporary. I don't have a, on an order form invoice, there's no place to do an electronic signature, so I just sign it. So
Yeah, this is Chelsea again. If we did that, if we went to the electronic, it would essentially just have to be printed to a PDF, add in the signature, and then saved. So either way, it's that extra step.
So this is Tina. So are you preferring to just leave it and everybody has to do handwritten signatures? Or could it be one of both? Could it be electronic and handwritten, or do you just want to leave it handwritten? Because this is for all temporary licensees. It doesn't say it in I don't believe it says it in the rule. Hang on.
Oh, this is Doug Welsh. I would go with both would be fine.
Yeah, I believe the rule doesn't specify handwritten.
No,
I think
it
that's
doesn't.
only on the only
I
on the
have it right
registration
in front of me.
agreement. Yeah.
I mean,
It's just on
increasingly,
sorry, go ahead.
It's just on the form. So the rule doesn't state it I just want to know if we could add in electronic signature also on this temporary declaration of responsibility.
So that would be, this is Ann, so that would be handwritten or electronic? You add
Yes.
that, so it could be either one. Is that what we're thinking?
Yes.
Is the council okay with that?
This is Doug Welsh. Yes, I am. That's fine.
This is Jennifer Alexander. I am too.
Henriquez, that's fine. I
No
agree.
objection. Peggy Kelly.
This talk is budget.
Thank you.
So we can, I don't know if Tina, if you want to alert our forms guru to have that added in.
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you so very much. That's incredibly helpful.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. So thank you to everyone for this wonderfully robust conversation. And we can transition to, I believe we have executive session, Trappist.
That's right. To get through there we go. Yeah, so we have executive session next. And Doug, you should have a script for reading us into the executive session.
I do.
And I'm thinking that, I mean, I don't know that this is going to be a particularly long discussion. I would think that if we've got to set a time, I would say, 15, 20 minutes. We can always go a little longer if we do get deep into conversation, but I don't foresee it being a super long or complicated discussion. But if knowing what, hopefully you've had a chance to see the materials that were sent to you, and you can, if you feel that differently, you can make it a longer executive session. We can always come back later, but we can't come back sooner than you say. I can put it that way.
Hey, Trappist, could you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Doug, could you read that for me? My throat is shot.
Yes, let me get the script out.
I'm so sorry. I'm like,
not a problem at all.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
All right, I can read it out here. Let's see here. Took me a second to get it open. Okay. The Advisory Council on Hearing Aids will now meet in executive session pursuant with ORS 192.6602F and ORS 676.590 for the purpose of considering information exempt from public disclosure at 11:01 a.m. on October 10th, 2025. Representatives of the news media shall be allowed to attend the executive session. Audience members attending through MS Teams will now be moved into a separate breakout room, and the audience members attending in person are asked to leave the room, both for the duration of executive session. Those authorized to attend the executive session, please continue to keep your phones muted and your camera off. Are there any representatives of the news media on MS Teams? No. Recognizing there are no news media in attendance, the public will be moved into a separate breakout room for the duration of executive session. We will return to open session before taking any final actions and making any final decisions. It is estimated that the council will return to the public session at 11:15 a.m. Please be aware that it is possible the council's executive session may last longer than 11:15 a.m. If the public has any questions about whether the council is still in executive session, then the public can contact Josh Page at josh.page@oha.oregon.gov. We are now in executive session.
Okay, the Advisory Council on Hearing Aids will now exit executive session and reconvening open session at, my gosh, 11:27 a.m. No final decisions were made and no votes were taken in executive session. The public will now be moved from the breakout room back into the meeting, and representatives of the media may once again record or report all council discussions and actions.
Right. So in case number 25-11476, it is proposed to impose a $500 civil penalty, suspend the respondent's license until they can provide evidence that they are in compliance with CE hours. Also place the license on probation until the next renewal of that license. Also to assess the costs of any disciplinary proceedings up to $5,000. It is also proposed to give the HLO authority to enter into a settlement agreement with the respondents if necessary.
This is
The
Chelsea
council
Montgomery.
member. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chelsea.
I so move.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Jennifer
Enriquez,
Alexander,
I
I second.
Second.
Oh, who was it, Trampus?
I think it was Jennifer first.
Okay. So Chelsea and Jennifer, thank you. And we need a roll call vote.
I will now call roll. Doug Welsh, yay. Lorraine Henriquez,
Yay.
Chelsea Montgomery,
Yay.
Peggy Kelly,
Yes.
Todd Williams,
I'm not sure if he's still on the call.
don't see him, no.
Lost him.
Okay, Jennifer Alexander,
Yay.
I think that's everybody, and motion passes. So I think the last thing on the agenda is other council business.
Excuse me, this is Henriquez.
Mhm.
Did we make a decision or do we need a vote on the request to take the test at this time? I didn't hear that wrap up, so I don't know.
Oh, on the
Trampus,
practical exam?
are we talking about the person who needed to take the exam again?
That's what I was asking about.
Yes, we had a first, we had a Doug, Chelsea, and a unanimous vote.
Mm.
Yeah. I don't think the office doesn't have any other council business to bring up.
No, is there anything that anyone else has a question on? I mean, obviously we have our work assigned to us for the spring meeting. Is there anything anybody else would like to discuss at this time or would like added to the agenda for the spring? Well, if we don't have anything, then our chair can read us out.
Well, you know, if I had the script for that closing, that would be great. This is Doug.
Trampus, do you have one you can help him out?
Yeah, you bet I do. I can.
At the bottom of
I think.
Hang on.
Oh. It's right at the bottom of the public records of the public meeting or public comment section.
Okay, there it is. I found it. The Advisory Council on Hearing Aids meeting is adjourned at 11:32 a.m. October 10th.
Thank you all so much. Trampus, do you want us to stay on?